You're standing in line at the grocery store, and a guy waves at you from 2 aisles over. You wave back on autopilot because you know him. You know his face. You know he had a brown Trans Am in 11th grade. You know his mom worked at the bank. You know he threw up on the bus once on a field trip to a cider mill. What you do not know, with a gun to your head, is his name. I'm Frank, and this thing that just happened to you in produce is a lot smaller than it feels. Your brain isn't falling apart. What you just hit is a very specific, very well-mapped little glitch that researchers have been pulling apart for years, and it shows up loud in people in their late 40s to early 60s. You are not losing it. You are doing something the brain is actually designed to do, and once you see why, the guy in aisle 4 becomes a lot less scary. Start with the guy, because he's the whole story. You can see him at 15. You can see the exact patch of sidewalk in front of his house. You remember his dog was some kind of shepherd mix that always ran out into the road and somehow never got hit. You remember the inside of his garage smelled like gasoline and a lawnmower that didn't work. You remember he had an older brother who was a jerk, and a younger sister who was nice, and there was a basketball hoop in the driveway with a rim bent slightly forward, like every other basketball hoop on the street. All of that you've still got. Crystal. The one thing you don't have is the 4-letter sound his mother used to yell out the front door at dinner time. That's a feature in how proper names get stored, and it's been documented for a long time. Cognitive psychologists have a thought experiment they call the Baker-Baker paradox. You show people a picture of a man and tell half of them, this man is a baker, and tell the other half, this man's name is Baker. Same word, same syllables. Later, you ask everybody what they remember. The people who were told the man is a baker remember it pretty well. The people who were told his name is Baker forget at a much higher rate. Same sound, different job in the brain. When baker is a profession, your head hooks it onto bread, ovens, flour, a guy in an apron, the bakery down the street. When baker is a name, it hooks onto nothing. It's a label slapped on a face. It has no meaning. It refuses to stick. Now take that and apply it to every kid you grew up with. Their names were arbitrary noises their parents picked before they were born. The noises connected to nothing about who they actually were. So in your head, the kid is fully there. Bike, dog, garage, the sister, the brother, the rim. And the noise is the one piece with no rope tied to it. The rope rotted 35 years ago because you stopped saying the noise out loud. A study published this year in Scientific Reports went deep on what researchers call tip-of-the-tongue states, that specific feeling where you know it, and the word is sitting just behind a door you can't open. They found a handful of things drive how often it happens. How often you use the word, how recently you've pulled it up. Names of childhood friends fail on both. You haven't said the name in decades. You haven't retrieved it in decades. The connection in the network gets weaker every year you don't fire it. So the face is bright and loud, and the name is a whisper behind drywall. And here's where Gen X specifically gets ambushed. There's work in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience looking at proper name recall in adults in roughly the 55 to 69 range. Proper name recall in that band slipped in a measurable way compared to younger adults. Tip-of-the-tongue events shot up. Memory in general was fine. Vocabulary in general was fine. The ability to learn or reason or hold a conversation was fine. The slip was specific to names. Just the labels, the arbitrary stuff. Which means if you were born in 68 or 72 or 78, you are walking into the window where this part of the system gets noticeably creakier, while the rest of you is fine. You feel it in real time and you panic, because the cultural script for forgetting names at this age is, uh-oh. The cultural script is wrong. Let me show you why. Harvard runs a thing called the Aging Brain Study. In 2017, researchers there published fMRI work in the journal Cerebral Cortex, looking at what's actually happening in the head during a tip-of-the-tongue moment. They found something a lot of people missed. Tip-of-the-tongue states and actual memory failure light up different regions of the brain. When you're successfully remembering something, an area called the retrosplenial cortex is doing the work. When you're stuck in that tip-of-the-tongue feeling, a different area lights up. The lateral prefrontal cortex, which is your retrieval monitoring system. The part of your brain that's standing there going, I know this, hold on, I know this. That circuit is what changes with age. The storage held, the search slowed down. Read that again because it matters. The information is usually still in there. The librarian is slower, the book is on the shelf. The kid from the cul-de-sac is in there. The retrieval mechanism is just doing a worse job of finding the right aisle on demand. That's why the name pops up in the shower 3 hours later. The book was there the whole time. The library closed for the day and reopened when you stopped looking. Now layer one more piece on top. There's a long-running study published in 2021 that followed healthy adults over roughly a decade and tracked how their autobiographical memories changed over time. They found something researchers call semantization. Specific memories drift into general ones as people age. The memory stays. The specifics inside it peel off. The summer you spent at the lake becomes a general feeling of summers at the lake. The fight in the kitchen with your father becomes a general sense of how he was when he was angry. The kid down the street becomes a general impression of a kid down the street. The gist stays. The exact details, the names, the dates, the specific words used, peel off first. This is why you can sit at a reunion and have an entire conversation with somebody, and you both remember the same field trip, the same teacher's reaction, the same kid who got in trouble, and neither one of you can produce the name of the kid who got in trouble. You're both running on the gist. The gist is intact in both of you. The label is gone in both of you. You leave the table convinced one of you is losing it, and actually, you're both doing exactly the thing that healthy aging brains do. Here's the part that should genuinely take some pressure off. There's research out of Wisconsin, 2 combined cohorts of middle-aged to older adults, that compared people born around the Gen X window to earlier birth cohorts at the same age, on cognition, processing speed, executive function, attention, verbal fluency. The later cohort, adjusted for age and education, did better on the heavy lifting cognitive measures, not worse. So the experience of blanking on Bobby from the bus has nothing to do with your generation sliding. It's happening because proper names are a specific, isolated weak point in the system, and they always have been. And they fail first while the rest of the engine is still running clean. By the numbers, you're the sharper version of the older generation, not the dimmer one. The name thing is just the one quirky place where the wiring is thin for everybody, and it gets thinner with mileage. Before I keep going, I've been working on something on the side, a book called Psychology of Gen X. It gets into a lot of this, the stuff that got wired into you young and what it's doing to you now, the patterns you can't quite explain about yourself. Links in the description if you want to look. And to everyone watching and sharing this stuff, genuinely, thank you. If you want to go a step further, there's a Patreon too. Subscribers get early access to videos with no ads, and you help keep the channel running. That link's right there as well. QR codes on screen. Okay, so why does this hit Gen X so hard right now? Part of it is just exposure. You knew an absurd number of people growing up. You were outside. You were on bikes. You were in 3 different friend groups across 2 different neighborhoods because you moved once, or your friend moved once, or somebody's parents split and the kid showed up at a new school in the middle of the year. The pool of names you logged between age 6 and age 16 is enormous. Most of those names you stopped saying out loud the day you graduated. That's thousands of labels you have not retrieved since the first Bush administration. The scientific report's work on recency is brutal here. If you haven't said it, the line goes quiet. Multiply that by every kid on every street, and every kid in every homeroom, and every kid on every team, and the math is just unkind. There's also the motivation piece. Charan Ranganath, who runs the Memory and Plasticity program at UC Davis, told Time that the simplest reason we forget names is that we're not actually motivated to remember them in the moment we hear them. We're overconfident at the point of introduction. We assume we'll remember. We don't put in the work to encode the name with any hooks. Now apply that backwards. When you were 8 and somebody's mom said, "This is Brian, he just moved in next door," you weren't consciously encoding Brian. You were looking at Brian's bike and wondering if Brian had a Nintendo. Brian's name went in shallow. You used it for a couple of years because you had to. Then you moved, or he moved, or you both went to different high schools, and the name went into the attic, and the attic door swelled shut. The face is different. Face recognition runs on completely different machinery, evolutionarily ancient machinery, the kind of thing the brain has been doing since before language existed. There's a Psychology Today piece walking through research by Abrams and Davis that puts it cleanly. Your ability to recognize a face is preserved in ways your ability to produce a name is not. Recognition is a comprehension task. The brain is good at comprehension. Producing the name is a production task. The brain, especially the aging brain, is worse at production. So you'll always know the guy in aisle 4. You will sometimes not be able to say the guy in aisle 4. That gap is architecture, not damage. Here's a wrinkle that should make you laugh instead of worry. A researcher named Deffler at York College of Pennsylvania looked at how often people get called the wrong name by someone who knows them well. A big share of the people she surveyed had been called the wrong name by a familiar person. The overwhelming majority of those mix-ups came from inside the family. And the person making the mistake was usually older than the person being misnamed. So when your mother calls you by your brother's name, or by the dog's name, or by your cousin's name from 1982, she isn't slipping. She's doing the same retrieval monitoring shuffle you're doing in the grocery store. She's pulling from the right category, family members, people I love, and grabbing the wrong label off the shelf. The category retrieval is intact. The specific label is the part that wobbles. She's grabbing the closest name in the same drawer. She knows exactly who you are. You're going to do this to your own kids. You may already be doing it. It runs in the species, not the family. And it tells you something kind of beautiful about how the brain organizes the people you love as a cluster, a constellation, a group of faces it pulls from when affection fires. The affection is the strong part. The label is the weak part. If you ever needed proof that the people who raised you weren't being careless when they ran through 4 names before they landed on yours, that's it. They had you in the right drawer the whole time. Now, the part you actually want to know. Can you do anything about it? Some of it, yes. Not in a brain training app way. In a small, specific way that lines up with what the research actually shows. The scientific report's finding on recency means the names you use stay strong. So if there are people from your past you actually want to keep accessible, your best friend from 3rd grade, the woman who lived next door, the teacher who mattered, say their names out loud sometimes. Tell a story about them and use the name in the story. You are literally watering the line. The line that gets watered stays open. The line that doesn't, doesn't. That's the whole mechanism. Second, the tip of the tongue research says the name is usually in there. So when you're stuck, stop forcing it. The lateral prefrontal cortex hunting harder doesn't help. Walk away. Think about something else. The name will surface in 20 minutes when you're loading the dishwasher. Researchers have watched this happen on imaging. Pressure makes the search worse. Letting go opens the door. Third, when you meet somebody new and you actually want to remember them, do the thing Ranganath points at. Don't trust your overconfidence. Repeat the name. Tie it to something. Make a stupid little association. Anything that gives the arbitrary label a rope to hold on to. The Baker-Baker problem gets solved by force. You give the name a meaning it didn't earn on its own. Cheap trick. Works. And fourth, forgive yourself for the kid from the cul-de-sac. He probably can't remember your name either. The two of you encoded each other in a system that wasn't built to last 40 years without rehearsal, and it's done a remarkable job preserving the dog and the bike and the smell of the garage. The label was the cheap part of the file. The expensive part, who he was, what he meant, what that whole street felt like in the summer, that part is still on the hard drive. That part is doing fine. You walk out of the grocery store. You get in the car. You sit there for a second with the keys in your hand. And somewhere between the parking lot and your driveway, with no warning and no effort, his name lands in your head like a coin dropping into a vending machine. Kevin. Of course it was Kevin. It was always Kevin. You laugh a little. You shake your head. You drive home. Something is exactly right with you, in fact. The part of your brain that holds the people you loved is doing its job, and the part that holds their name tags is doing the slightly cheaper job it was always going to do. You knew him. You still know him. The label just took the scenic route home. One more thing worth sitting with before you go. The next time it happens, and it will happen, probably this week, notice what you do remember. Not as a consolation prize, as evidence. You remember the bike. You remember the dog. You remember which side of the street the house was on and which window was his bedroom and what his front door sounded like when it opened. That is an enormous file. That file is the friendship. The name was the sticker on the outside of the folder. Stickers fade. The folder is intact. The folder is, by every measure the researchers have, in better shape in your generation than in the one before you. So when Kevin lands in your head in the driveway, give yourself a little credit. The system worked. It just worked on its own schedule, the way it was always going to. Quick thing before I go. Psychology of Gen X came out of doing this channel and realizing all these topics connect into one bigger story about how you got built. So to everyone who is able to get it, or anyone thinking of getting it, thank you for supporting the channel. Genuinely. If you're looking to get it for yourself, scan the QR code on screen right now. All right. The video on the screen? Give it a look. I think it's the right one for you.